Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to the channel. So last week, Apple held their usual September event and as usual released some new iPhones as well as some new iPads. If you haven't seen my hands on with the new iPad mini yet, then definitely go and check that out here. But in this video, we're going to be talking about the new iPhones. So starting with the options, as before we have 4 models of the iPhone 13, the Standard, the Mini, the Pro and the Pro Max. Personally, I'm happy they've kept the iPhone mini in the lineup as it seems like so many people are enjoying having a smaller device in their pockets at a slightly cheaper price. It's definitely not for the enthusiasts, but for the everyday user who wants something a bit more practical, it's perfect. In terms of pricing for the iPhone 13, it starts at $700 or £680 and is configurable up to 512GB. It comes in 5 colours: pink, blue, midnight, starlight and red. And finally for the Pro, that starts at $1,000 or £950, which is now configurable up to 1TB. And that comes in 4 colours: Sierra Blue, Silver, Gold and Graphite. So what I've got here is the iPhone 13 Pro in Sierra Blue and the iPhone 13 Mini in Midnight. So let's look at the unboxing next. I'm going to start with the Mini. Notice how there's no plastic wrap around these boxes, which is actually something new for Apple this year. They claim they've actually saved 600 tons of plastic by doing this, which is another great step in the right direction. So let's open this first box up and see what's inside. And as usual, you just get the phone, so let's put that to one side for the moment. And then of course we have the instructions with some stickers in as well. And then finally the USB-C to Lightning cable. So let's just show you what the phone looks like itself. And wow, this midnight finish is really nice. I'm actually really happy with that. It's essentially a black finish, but with a very subtle blue tint. The best thing about this mini model though is just the size. Just look at how small it is. It's pretty awesome if you don't want something big and bulky in your pocket. Okay, so let's bring the iPhone Pro back in now, and remember this is the Sierra Blue edition. So let's take this out of the box and see what's inside. As again, similar to the Mini, we have the instructions and some stickers, as well as a USB-C to Lightning cable as well. So let's bring the phone back in and just take this wrapper off. And yeah, that colour is awesome. Wow, that is really nice. Let me just grab my iPhone 12 actually so you guys can see the Pacific Blue, which is the iPhone 12 colour, versus this new Sierra Blue. I mean, I think they're both awesome to be honest, just really nice colours, but probably the Sierra Blue just nudges it for me. It's a really nice update. So next up, let's talk about the design now. And I guess the first thing to say is that it's actually pretty much the same footprint as the iPhone 12 for both the Pro and the Mini, with the iPhone 13 being ever so slightly thicker. And just to illustrate that, here's my iPhone 12 Pro, and as you can see it's a barely noticeable difference. Apart from the thickness, what's interesting as well is that the position of the side buttons seems to have shifted down on the new models. If you look at the 13 Pro here compared with the 12 Pro, you can see they're slightly lower on both sides. Presumably that just makes it easier to reach if you have smaller hands. One of the most noticeable differences though is that camera bump. It's absolutely huge. It's way bigger on the iPhone 13 Pro than the 12 Pro, and you can see that pretty clearly here. It's actually also a lot thicker as well. Obviously if you put a case around your phone, then the case is going to make the camera bump flush anyway, but it's just something to be aware of. Obviously with this bigger camera bump, it actually means the cameras are much better quality this year. It's a bigger sensor to let in almost 50% more light, and faster apertures as well across the entire range, which is great. So that also goes for the Mini versus the previous Mini. And on the Mini, the cameras are now actually diagonal rather than in the vertical layout that we've seen previously. And that's probably to make more room for these larger camera sensors. In fact, the other interesting thing about these new cameras is that the primary sensors across the entire iPhone 13 range now have image stabilization, which previously was only available for the iPhone 12 Pro Max. On the front, we also have a slightly smaller camera notch, which you can see here in comparison to the 12. And on the bottom, of course, we still have the Lightning port, which, I mean, come on Apple. I think it's time we saw the switch to USB-C now. Personally, I love Apple products, but as a USB-C user across pretty much all of my devices, it's high time we made that switch. Apart from those small design tweaks, the overall design is the same. We still have the squared off aluminium edges on the Mini and the surgical grade stainless steel on the Pro. And then on the back, we still have the usual matte glass for both as well, which personally I'm a big fan of. One small thing to note as well is that the antennas this year on the side are now made from recycled plastic bottles, which is an awesome nod to sustainability again from Apple. So aside from the design, most of the updates to the 13 actually come on the inside of the phone. We now have the A15 Bionic chip, of course, across the entire range, which means a 5-core CPU in the Pro and a 4-core CPU in the standard models. So performance for both the standard and the Pro will be improved. There's also improved battery life up to 2.5 hours longer, depending on which model you get, which is good news for the Mini especially, which definitely needed a bit of a battery boost. Aside from that, the OLED screens across the board are 25% brighter, which means 625 nits on the regular models and now up to 1200 nits on the Pro model. And this brings us nicely onto one of the biggest updates for the Pro, which is of course the new 120Hz display, made possible by a technology which actually already exists in the iPad Pro called ProMotion. ProMotion tech, if you haven't heard of it before, allows the refresh rate of the screen to change dynamically depending on your usage. In that way, it delivers a maximum performance when you need it, but obviously conserving battery when you don't. So that's going to just mean a snappier display all round, which you'll probably notice more for things like gaming, scrolling, or flicking between apps. The second big update is a new video version of portrait mode, dubbed cinematic mode, which features something called true depth. The new mode essentially allows you to shoot with a shallow depth of field, and if you don't know what I mean by that, it's the reason you see blurry backgrounds on high quality cameras when the foreground is in focus. This is obviously something that's been available in portrait mode for a while now, but it's great to see it arrive to video finally. What's also cool is that Apple is now using AI to anticipate when a prominent subject is in focus, so it will change the focus automatically as well as allowing you to edit the bokeh in post. Also, in terms of the cameras, there's a new ProRes capability, which means if you're someone that uses your iPhone for filming high quality video, you can now shoot it in ProRes RAW, which essentially means you're retaining more of the original footage data so you can edit more easily your final image. It also explains why there's now a 1TB option for the iPhone Pro, because ProRes means larger file sizes. And by the way, a quick side note on that, ProRes 4K recording is not available in the 128GB option. Another thing to mention briefly is Apple's new photographic styles, which Apple appears to be claiming are much more accurate at handling tone and warmth settings than filters. So that's pretty cool, and I'm looking forward to playing around with these at some stage. Okay guys, so those are the big headline updates for the iPhone 13 versus the 12. And as you can see, it's essentially very similar to the 12 in terms of specs, with a very minor design tweak. I suppose given these updates, you're probably wondering whether you should get one of these. And that's a tricky question to answer. I think if you're a Pro user and you're going to enjoy the 120Hz screen and improved cameras, then it might just be worth upgrading from the 12 Pro, although that's a bit of a stretch. On the other hand, if you're just a day-to-day user, then there's not a lot of new news here versus the 12, apart from some colour tweaks, which is a bit disappointing from Apple, so I'm not sure it makes much sense to upgrade. So for both these models, I don't think I can recommend upgrading from the 12. It sort of only really makes sense if you're coming at it new, or if you're coming from an iPhone 10 or 11, because then obviously you'll see the more significant upgrades. I do really like the Mini though. I think that's definitely the one I'd go for if I didn't need the Pro features, and with the slightly improved battery, I think it's going to be a really popular option. Also at $700, this is now a really good entry-level iPhone that has pretty much all the features most people would need. So that's also a really great price if you're on a tight budget. It's also worth considering that for the cost of the Pro, you could buy a pair of AirPods Pro and an iPhone Mini for pretty much the same price. So that's pretty cool and definitely something worth thinking about. So guys, anyway, that's it for this video. Remember to watch my iPad mini video for my thoughts on that as well, and also to subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the video. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.